Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
Right now, we're watching something fascinating unfold across Major League Baseball, and it's not what anyone expected when the offseason started. The market isn't dead, it's holding its breath. Every front office is waiting for someone else to make the first major move, and that tension is building to a breaking point. What looks like inaction is actually calculated positioning, and the teams that understand this moment are the ones who will come out ahead. Let me tell you what's actually happening beneath the surface, because the public narrative and the private reality are two completely different things right now. Chicago is the perfect example of a franchise caught between two visions of itself. The Cubs are simultaneously pursuing Bo Bichette and Alex Bregman, treating them like interchangeable pieces when they're fundamentally different puzzles. Bregman is straightforward. You plug him in at third base, you push Matt Shaw into a utility role or trade discussions, and you move forward. Clean, simple, no ambiguity. But then Bichette enters the conversation and everything becomes complicated. It's not just about where he plays, though. That's part of it. Shortstop, second base, third base. The answer changes depending on which defensive metrics you trust and how much faith you have in his ability to adapt. What really complicates things is the bigger picture. Bichette carries expectations that go beyond his slash line. He's a name, a presence, a marketing asset. You're not just acquiring a player. You're making a statement about the direction of your franchise. The truly interesting part is what Chicago might do with Nico Hoerner to make room. Hoerner is one of those players who gets undervalued until he's gone. Consistent production, smart baseball, reliable defense. These things don't generate headlines until you're trying to replace them. Trading him to accommodate Bichette feels less like strategic planning and more like chasing the shinier object without considering what you're giving up. Boston is watching all of this unfold with genuine interest, and they've got the flexibility to make a real play for either player. The Red Sox can move Marcelo Mayer around. They've got positional openings at second and third, and their financial situation allows them to enter any bidding war they choose. The problem is Boston's recent track record. They get close, they do the homework, they engage in serious talks, and then they hesitate at the finish line. The interest is absolutely real, but the market is still waiting to feel that decisive push from Fenway that signals they're all in. Arizona presents a completely different scenario, and it's the kind of situation that defines mid-market baseball. The Diamondbacks like Alex Bregman conceptually, but Ketel Marte's contract creates a massive roadblock. 5 years and over $90 million remaining. That's not a deal you just absorb while adding another premium player. Marte is excellent. Nobody's questioning his talent, but his contract limits Arizona's options. Bregman only becomes realistic if they move Marte, and moving Marte isn't simple because you're asking another team to take on that entire financial commitment. This is the crossroads that mid-market teams face constantly. Do you compete with what you have, optimizing around the edges, or do you make the bold move that could elevate you but also carries serious risk if it backfires? Arizona's decision here will tell us a lot about how they view their current window. The Mets situation is fascinating precisely because of how quiet it's been. There's documented interest in elite starting pitching. Framber Valdez, Tarek Skubal, Freddie Peralta, Mackenzie Gore, Edward Cabrera, but the approach feels measured rather than aggressive. The focus appears to be on trades rather than free agency, and people close to the situation describe the pace as lukewarm at best. When you actually look at their projected rotation, the margin for error is razor thin. You need Senga to stay healthy, which is far from guaranteed. You need Mania to replicate last year's performance. You're betting on Clay Holmes transitioning to a starting role, which is intriguing in theory but unproven in practice. It's the kind of rotation that can absolutely work if everything breaks right, but the Mets' recent history should make them wary of relying too heavily on best-case scenarios. All of these situations feel disconnected when you examine them individually, but they're actually creating a web of interdependence across the market. When the Cubs, Red Sox, Diamondbacks, and Mets are all circling the same names, even with different levels of interest and different strategic fits, it freezes the entire market. Prices don't move. Decisions get delayed, and players end up waiting for someone to break the stalemate. That's exactly when Toronto's shift becomes significant. The Blue Jays just signed Kazuma Okamoto, and while that move generated plenty of attention for the talent acquisition, the more important signal was about organizational philosophy, versatility, roster balance, forward planning. These aren't flashy concepts, but they're the foundation of sustainable success. What's happened quietly is that Bo Bichette's name has cooled off in Toronto's plans, not because his talent level dropped, not because they stopped respecting what he brings, but because the fit became more complicated than the alternative options. Nobody in baseball likes to admit this publicly, but roster construction isn't about accumulating the best individual players. It's about reducing friction, making future decisions easier, avoiding the kind of tactical patchwork that looks smart in spreadsheets but creates headaches on the field. For Toronto right now, upgrading right field is cleaner than reinventing their infield. That's not a criticism of Bichette, it's a recognition of reality. And that's why Kyle Tucker has moved from interesting possibility to legitimate priority. Tucker doesn't create positional questions. He doesn't require defensive experimentation or weekly debates about optimal alignment. He shows up, plays elite defense in right field, and produces at the plate with power and consistency. While Bichette brings questions about contract length, opt-outs, and defensive positioning, Tucker brings answers. When a franchise starts preferring answers over questions, you know the internal calculus has shifted. The Anthony Santander situation adds another layer. Trading Santander would open up playing time and budget flexibility, but his rough first season has complicated his trade value. 4 years and over $76 million remaining. You're not moving that contract without absorbing significant money. It's not impossible, but it requires finding a trade partner willing to take on that financial commitment. And those partners aren't exactly lining up. Meanwhile, Bichette still has a market. The Cubs are talking. The Red Sox are engaged. Others are monitoring. But when reports start surfacing that a meeting with Toronto feels increasingly unlikely, that's not random information finding its way to reporters. That's intentional signaling. Toronto is communicating without explicitly stating that Plan A has evolved. For the Cubs, Bregman brings simplicity, but Bichette brings complications they might not need. For Boston, flexibility exists, but commitment remains uncertain. For Arizona, structural risk might outweigh the competitive upgrade. For the Mets, patience is the strategy, but time doesn't always cooperate with patience. For Toronto, Tucker solves an immediate, measurable problem without creating future headaches. Bichette has shifted from primary target to conditional option. The roster gains balance without contorting itself into awkward shapes. And this doesn't mean Toronto has lost focus. It means they're reading the entire market, understanding where leverage exists, and positioning themselves to strike when the moment arrives. The market is frozen right now because everyone's waiting for someone else to establish the price points. But that freeze won't last. Someone will commit. Someone will overpay slightly, and that will unlock the entire market in rapid succession. The question isn't whether that moment arrives. It's which teams are positioned to capitalize when it does. Toronto seems to be building toward that moment rather than forcing action before it arrives. Drop your thoughts below about whether Tucker is the right target or if Bichette still makes sense.